So after 5 months and 21 weeks, I've been interested to talk with people about what they might have learned about our culture, maybe themselves, maybe their own response, whatever it would be. And it's been fascinating to me to talk to people. Nobody's the same. Everybody's experienced some change or something's different about their lives. And here's what I've kind of discovered. Though we're kind of across the board, there are two larger groups of people. Those are people, spiritually speaking anyways, who would come through these last 21 weeks, and how much longer it goes, we don't know, but would come through it and go, I've grown closer to Jesus. I know something more about him. I've walked through some dark valleys. There have been times of doubt and fear and anger and all those other things, but this has forced me, it's pushed me into a deeper place with Jesus, and I'm really grateful for that. And then there are others who would say, I think the waves of what have happened have taken me out to sea, and I'm not as close to Jesus as I was, and I kind of drifted from a personal connection to him, though I think it's still there. I missed not being in like a church gathering, and that's been my primary way of connecting with him, and when that was gone, he and I just drifted apart. And we're kind of everywhere in between that as well. And so I've been thinking about some of these reflections that people have shared with me the last several weeks, and I thought maybe we could look at some of these reflections. Here's one of the things that I've discovered. Almost universally, as I've spoken with people, and primarily the group are people who would self-identify as Jesus followers, they would state that there was an initial shock 5 months ago when suddenly, in the course of a couple of days, really, businesses closed and schools shut down and the world changed so rapidly. And there was an immediate sense of fear as it relates to an event. But when it just progressed week after week after week, that fear of an event or because of an event changed into just angst and uncertainty. And I'm not sure, and I'm somewhat fearful, I'm worried, I'm concerned. How long does this go on? How deep does it get? What's going to happen? And anxiety just seemed to be part of like everyday life. And the majority of people that I spoke to were that. I want you to know, fear, anxiety wears a mask. And I don't mean like the mask that we're all wearing here, not that kind of mask. It wears a disguise. Fear and anxiety comes out in all kinds of ways. It comes out in the disguise of denial. The denial disguise. This is no big deal. It's all going to go away. Why bother with it? I don't have to do anything. I just live. I'm just going to deny the reality of it. There's the fight disguise. I'm going to put up a fight. I'm not going to give into it. There's the hiding disguise, the fleeing disguise. Here's a dangerous one, the invincibility disguise. Won't touch me. I'm young, I'm healthy, I'm strong, vibrant. Couldn't possibly come to be part of my world. Then there's the fear denial disguise. My reaction is not fear. I'm not afraid. I'm just being cautious. And I have a really aggressive faith, really trusting faith. It's actually fear. It's anxiety. And as I've sat with people from all different views and perspectives on this, I've just been reminded over again, there's a human tendency. All of us have it. To, in a place of uncertainty or disappointment, to lean toward anxiety and fear. There are some, for sure, who just genuinely, just attractively have had this calm, peaceful disposition of just projecting something that's something unique and different about them. There's like not a faith in Jesus they even talk about all that much, but they just kind of have a confident rest in him. We admire you. It's wonderful. But for the rest of us, where does this pervasive anxiety come from? Not all of us for sure, but the vast majority of people I've asked this reflection to are self-described Christians. Some would even say they're followers of Jesus, which actually are two different things. By default, they would suggest that they trust in the divine. They do. They would say that they believe that there's a maker and there's a sustainer of everything and who came into this world 2,000 years ago and rescued the world by giving his own life, and now he offers life with them, and they can really do the rich, full life, trusting in him and living in confidence with him. They would actually say that. But then I've discovered that oftentimes exhibit just about the same level of angst that people who wouldn't make that claim. I had a rather disturbing, I guess, conversation with someone who's this soft-spoken, thoughtful, life-tested, wiser, older man. And he said to me, "I can't figure you Christians out. I'm mystified by you. All my life, you constantly have invited me into a faith relationship with Jesus where he's going to care for me and he's going to look after me. His death on the cross forgave me of all my sins, and I don't have to be fearful of that anymore, and I can live a good, rich life with him, and I can trust him, and he'll be faithful, and he'll walk with me through all the changes that happen in life. And yet, you are the ones who are filling my Facebook feed with words that it appears that you're trying to communicate confidence and a faith-filled defiance against sinister elements and conspiracies, but frankly, it doesn't come across as faith, it comes across as fear. That's how I interpret it. And why should I trust in a God that you're actually not trusting in too?" It was a good question. It's a disturbing question. It bothered me. It continues to bother me. You see, there is a common default tendency within humans, regardless of faith or no faith, that screams for attention in crisis moments like this, sustained crisis moments like this. Now, here's the good news. We actually have someone who can help us with this, who will walk this road with us and will actually build something into us where we can be different kinds of people. I want to do something with you for just a little bit. I want to go back to a book that was written in 1997. And some of you, if you've lived in the business world, you will have come across this book. It's one of the finest leadership books that's been written. It was released in 1997. The author, or the one who gets credit for it, is a guy by the name of Edwin Friedman. It actually was put together by his family a year after he passed away. You may not know who Edwin Friedman is. Well, he was an active rabbi in a synagogue for 25 years in Washington, D.C. He actually started it and was there as an active pulpit rabbi for 25 years. At the same time, he was a therapist. He got trained in family and marriage therapy. And he was particularly interested in studying family systems. You know, each one of us come from a family system. Our families work in certain ways. We may not be able to identify the details of that system, but you know how your family works. And it just seems to perpetuate generation after generation, some variations. But he studied this, and he was intrigued by this, so much so that his writings began to be followed by businesses. And they wanted to know, how does this systems idea of relationships work in the business world? He applied it to his synagogue and in churches. And ultimately, President Lyndon Johnson brought him in as an advisor as it related to nation states and how systems work. Well, following his death, his family compiled all of his unpublished journals and different things that he had written into a book. And you might have heard of this book. It's called Failure of Nerve. You may very well have heard of it. But it's built around this premise that in the Western world, there is this notion that everything improves in time, that we're ultimately ending up in some utopian or at least better distant future, and everything, though there are dips, is up and to the right. Technology advances, economic policy advances, sophistication of how governments conduct themselves, democracies, it just advances and it moves forward. Medical science improves, everything is up and to the right. And this is his premise of how systems work in this. Well, here's what Friedman did. He looked at that data and that Western idea, and he said, it works on some level, but it doesn't work on every level. Yes, our technology may advance, medical science may advance, but he found that in fact our morality and our relationship values were not advancing. They were deteriorating and they were diminishing, not advancing like we would think they would be. That has led to, and we're seeing it in the last 5 months particularly, that has led to an increase in anxiety. Statistics prove this. Mental breakdowns, chronic depression, suicides, addictions, relationship dysfunction, meltdowns, they're all kind of epidemic in these last months. And it just feels that life's falling apart around us. And that is leading to greater anxiety. Possibly Friedman's greatest help on the subject of widespread anxiety and damaging effects is how he describes a downward spiral of what happens when things aren't up and to the right for us. It's a fascinating study. He identified a 5-step, self-perpetuating downward spiral of how anxiety builds and affects us. Would you hang with me as I go through these really quickly? I think it's really informative. The first thing, it starts when things don't play out as we wish they would, or they don't appear that that's the direction they're going, is first of all, there's a reactivity that we experience. Reactivity. It's a natural human response to events that are new, uncertain, dangerous, and threatening. And there's kind of an internal reaction called anxiety that starts to build into our lives. And it gets expressed with fear or anger or outrage or cocooning or running or hiding, whatever we do. All kinds of expressions of it. And of course, add to that the 24-hour news cycle and our umbilical cord connection to our devices, which, by the way, you know this is not cynicism, this is economics. Fear sells. It does. Building on anxiety sells. It creates clicks, and it creates looks, and it creates views. And the media is understanding this. They know that really well. And with fear, they can create, it's an economic thing, advertising dollars and so on it goes. But meanwhile, it has such a negative effect on our culture and our lives because we're hooked to the media. And this is where it becomes problematic for us. And when that reaction takes place, the second thing that happens is there's a herding instinct. All of us have this pride in our American individualism. No one tells me what to do. In actual practice, we can't deny who we are as human beings. And so what we do when we react and we don't have an answer for it, we begin to find people who we can align with, who think like us, who read what we read, who go to the same blogs we go to, who search the same websites we do, because now we've got some sense of control because someone else is affirming what I already believe, and now we've kind of heard it up a little bit, and now that doesn't reduce anxiety, that just multiplies it exponentially. And when that takes hold, we start to blame. That's the third thing. Here's a quote from Friedman. He said, "Instead of examining and searching out the underlying causes creating toxicity, we focus on the symptoms, viewing them in isolation instead of viewing them as a system whole. Rather than taking proactive approach that examines our ability to affect change in areas we have responsibility, we retreat into a perpetual victim status, blaming others and external forces. As blame is thrown around as a kind of cultural paralysis begins to set in. A suffocating fear of offending or self-protecting creates gridlock, which prevents renewal. That in turn creates a quick fix mentality. The hedonism and instant gratification of Western culture creates in us a low threshold for pain, which in turn reduces our perseverance, which causes us to look for the silver bullet, the killer app, and the instant vaccine. We default to quick, easy, external, and political solutions rather than long, complex, hard, sustainable, internal, spiritual solutions. And finally, fifth step, he would say, is this creates a culture of paralysis, polarization, and mistrust, where we assume the worst of each other and we express it this way. We express it in anger, personally attacking emails, untested and untrue Facebook posts, dogmatic and opinionated conversations, condemnation and canceling of each other, organizations, even fellow followers of Jesus and the church as well. And this results in a deepening spiral of anxiety because there are no apparent answers and apparently nobody is coming to rescue us. Aren't you glad you came? That's just discouraging. Well, I want you to know, Friedman says something a little later in his book that has caught my attention. He concludes that unless somehow there is some injection of some kind of force that he calls a non-anxious presence, there is nothing to stop the spiral, and cultures are damaged and broken for generations and maybe longer than that. So what is a non-anxious presence, right? Well, it's real simple in one sense. Take the two words. It's a force or a group, usually a group or a person, that simply is genuinely peaceful, at rest. They're calm. They're confident. Secondly, they're a presence. They stay. They're with the situation. They don't leave it. They don't get out. They don't run. They ride it out. They don't isolate or cancel. They're non-anxious and they're present. It's a person, and often a small group of people, who do not get caught in the emotion of the crisis or conflict or tension. A force that has healthy boundaries and doesn't take on or take responsibility for other people's opinions and perspective and their actions. They have a well-developed core, a strong value system, and identity that give them confidence, discernment, and incredible listening qualities. That in the midst of the tension, they're not perfect for sure. They're not without emotion, but they are calm. And they are compassionate. They're at peace. They're wise. They're empathetic. They listen intently. And yet they're firm and they're truthful. And in so doing, they're able to stop the cycle of anxiety that's happening around them. They become a non-anxious presence vaccine in the anxiety contagion. Here's the point. What our culture desperately needs, what our city needs, what our places of work need, what our schools need, what our families need, is followers of Jesus who stop the anxiety cycle by being non-anxious presence in our families, in our world. We need to be that people who are peaceful, who don't just talk about a faith and a trust in Jesus, they actually live it. They actually have a day-to-day confidence that He's got this somehow. How? I don't know. But He's got it, and He's on it, and He's with us, and He's going to walk us through it, and He's bigger than anything that comes our way. And they just live that way, and that's what brings them their confidence. It's not that they're disciplined. They are to some degree, but they just have that inner sense of Jesus is bigger than this. And I don't have to be fearful. I don't have to be anxious. I can be fully present, non-anxious. So how do you become that kind of person? Well, this is where Friedman's work isn't all that helpful, actually. It's not. He doesn't really offer that great a solution for it. But we do have one. We do have the ability to look in on the one who leads us, the one who entered this world as the ultimate non-anxious presence in our world. You know who I mean. Jesus, our King. He, in the most difficult human settings that we can't actually imagine, He simply is this non-anxious presence in our world. There are so many examples that I could think of. You can too. I think of the Thursday night where Jesus knows what lies on Friday. He gathers His friends together in the upper room of a house in Jerusalem, and there He prepares dinner for them. And in that room, sitting around His table, are 12 guys who within hours are going to deny Him. One of them is profiteering off of His betrayal of Jesus. Another, his close friend, Peter, one of the inner core of three, is not only going to deny Him, but he's going to, through expletives, say he has no idea who Jesus is. And what does Jesus do? Rebuke them and tell them, guys, get your life together. You can't do that. You're like model citizens. You should be brave and courageous. Look at the stuff I've shown you. Look at the miracles I've done. Come on, guys. No. He's not anxious, though he's going to lose his life, and he knows it. He doesn't run away from them because, well, he knows what they're going to do. Nope. He stays, and he's not anxious, and he washes their feet. Who thinks about doing that on the eve of their death? Someone who thinks there's somebody else that's bigger, more than that situation. Another example, you can think of Jesus hanging from the cross, a couple of examples there where He's got a couple of guys on either side of Him who are dying with Him. And rather than just, leave me alone, guys, got to figure like my pain and what's going on here, He turns to them and makes them an incredible offer. How about paradise with me a little later today? And one of them takes them up on that. Who thinks of that at that time? Somebody who's not anxious. And somebody who stays present in that situation with these guys, looks down from the cross and sees his mom with John, turns to John and says, John, would you take care of my mom for me? Would you do that? John, I trust you. You'll look after mom. Like he's just not anxious. He's just really pragmatic, taking care of like his mom at that time. Here's the one that just mystifies me. He looks down from the cross and he sees these people who have beat him and lacerated his back and mocked him and put a crown on his thorn as if to mock him as the king. They have thrown rotten tomatoes at him and insults. They stripped him buck naked in front of everybody. And Jesus looks at them and has a non-anxious, present response. He says, "Oh, Father, take them out." No. Father, I'm present with these people right now. And I'm not thinking about myself. You've got me. Father, would you forgive them? They just don't know what they're doing. That's the thing. They just don't know. If they knew, they wouldn't do this. That's amazing. This is our leader. Now, it's really easy to go, well, of course you can do that if you're Jesus. Of course you can. That's no big deal for him, right? Well, hold on just a second. That's not being intellectually very honest. Because this is the same one between that dinner on Thursday night and the crucifixion on Friday. We find him in a garden praying, agonizing over what he's about to face. That isn't anxiety. Like, dealing with the surety of what's going to happen is not the same as being afraid of what's going to happen. And what does he do? In his non-anxious presence as a human being, he has a conversation with his Father and says, "Father, if you would be willing, would you make it all stop? But you know what I want more than this to stop, Father? Is I want what you want. And I'm going to stick it out. I'm going right to the end with you." Non-anxious presence. Yeah, okay, hold on just a second though. He could have changed this anytime he wanted to. Jesus says that himself. He says, I could call like 10,000 angels and they'd take care of this problem right now. But you know something? I trust my Father enough. I'm not making that phone call. I'm going to be present all the way to the end. And I'm not going to be anxious about it. And this is who leads us. This is our King. And this is how he does things with you and me. It's an amazing thing. And this is what he invites us to do in this world. Because of what I've done for you, would you go in a chaotic world, in a world that, oh my goodness, it longs for somebody to actually live out that sense of non-anxiety because we trust someone bigger than us. And someone who doesn't run away, someone who stays and is present. There's this wonderful story in Matthew chapter 14. We are going to get you to read it on your own if you would. It's a wonderful story of Jesus having just lost his good friend John the Baptist, his cousin. He just finds out about that, and we're told that he wants to go off and be by himself with his 12 guys to grieve and mourn. And by the end of the day, they become like the chefs and the servers for 20,000 people on the side of a hill, right? And then Jesus does this. He goes off by himself. Okay, if I could absolutely convince you of one thing, here's what I would want to convince you. If you want to be somebody who's a non-anxious presence in our world, there is no path forward unless you find yourself regularly alone with God. I don't know of any path forward. I don't. This is where we experience and encounter him, when we stop the noise of the world and we set aside for a minute the tension and the pressure and the decisions that we have to make and the opinions of other people, masks, no masks, all the stuff that just floods us. We go away by ourselves, alone with him. This is what Jesus does. He sends his friends off on the boat, and we know this is the story where they have this violent storm, this rogue wind that comes off the hills around Galilee, and they get in trouble and whatnot. But Jesus doesn't, because he regularly and routinely. You got to understand, this is God in a bod, right? He's God. He's human, and yet he will not advance without spending ample time alone with his Father. At one point he says, go into your closet, be by yourself, and talk to your Father. He already knows what you want, by the way. He knows what you need. But be alone with him. And your Father, who loves you more than you can possibly imagine, will meet you there and be with you. You and I are not going to be non-anxious presence without that. Without that. There's no path forward that I can see. Here's the interesting thing. Jesus is in this passage in Matthew chapter 14. We know that the waves are tossed up, and Jesus is walking on the water. And what do his friends assume that Jesus is? Not Jesus. They assume that he's a ghost, right? Hold on, just a sec. This is the guy that controls demonic activity. He's taught them all that stuff. They've seen him do incredible things. And why would they think that he's a ghost? Because there was a first century myth and legend. You and I would go to Lake Pleasant. We windsurf, or we wakeboard, or we party boat, or whatever we do. The lake is a wonderful place to hang out, right? Especially in our hot temperature. It wasn't so. The Sea of Galilee was not. It was a place where you got food out of. The rest of it was scary. There was a first century myth that some of the Pharisees, some of the religious leaders believed that there was a female demonic presence that when someone drowned in the Lake of Galilee or Sea of Galilee, those spirits were captured by, I know this is crazy, right? Captured by that female demonic spirit, and she would hold their souls in her hand. So this is a common myth or legend. That's what these guys default to. And I want to say, come on, guys. What? Who were you with all your last 3 years or so? But here's the thing. If you and I are not regularly, consistently alone with Jesus, we misapply what we think is truth, but it's really a myth and a legend. And so we send stuff on the internet that we haven't checked out. We don't know who it is. We haven't checked the source. We don't know if it's right, but we fire it off. We say mean-spirited things, and we send harsh emails, and we do all that. We're following a myth, and we always get what are you doing? No, truth matters. And this is what it means to be a non-anxious presence in the likes of Jesus. We know that Peter gets out of the boat, gives it a shot, right? Gives it his best shot. Doesn't work out for him very well. At some point, he sinks because he realizes, what have I done? How stupid is this? Right? You know the story. Okay? So there's Jesus walked on the water. Peter recognizes him, gets out of the boat, realizes what he's done, and first says, Jesus, invite me to yourself, and he does, and then he realizes what's happened, and he begins to doubt, and he questions whether Jesus is actually who Jesus says he is. I find it interesting that when Jesus invites Peter out, he does so because Peter asked him to invite him out. See, Peter wasn't totally sure, right? He had seen Jesus walking on the water, finally realizes, but he's not totally sure. He wants a certain result. He wants the end result. He wants to control the end result of how this is all going to work out. And then when doubt comes in, he realizes, I can't control the end result. He gets afraid. Our propensity is to want to be in control, right? Right? It's our wiring to do that. Non-anxious, present people, they give up control. Oh, well, hold on, just a sec. But they don't give up control to someone else. They don't give control to an ideology. They don't give control to a political figure or a political viewpoint. They give up control to Jesus. And that's a vast difference. And when we give up control, not just to ourselves or to others, and we give up control to Him, there's a profound and mysterious thing that happens inside of us. Anxiety begins to lift because of who we are putting our trust for control in. Jesus says, Peter, don't be afraid. It's I. There's another place in the Old Testament where there's Moses standing in front of a burning bush that won't burn up. And he's just been asked by God to go talk to Pharaoh and say, hey, let my people go from 430 years of slavery. And Moses says, well, who should I say is sending me? I don't think he's going to listen to me. And God says, tell him I am. That's the same word that Jesus uses. If you read to the end of the story, you're going to read that for the very first time after this experience, Jesus' followers declare him to be the Son of God. They've discovered something about him. So, how do we become non-anxious presence? Got to be alone with God. Have to. Secondly, believe Jesus for who he is, not for the outcome you want. You see, if we want a certain outcome at the end of whenever this comes to an end, and we don't get that, it might be something different. What happens to us? But what if we trust Him and leave the outcome to Him? We win at the end because we've trusted Him and He's faithful all the time. And that would be then the third thing. Just give up control to Him. I know that's hard, but that's why you have to start with being alone with Him, because you have to know who you're giving up control to. If you don't know, you won't give up control. You won't. Look, we have this opportunity in the weeks ahead to be a non-anxious presence in our families, in this world. And if Friedman's right, it's what stops the cycle of anxiety. I want to be that person, do you? I do. It's a beautiful idea. Follow Jesus in this and watch what He does through you and me in our homes, in our culture, in our city, in our schools, around us. Just watch what He does. And Jesus, this would be for your fame and for your glory, for your majesty, for your reputation. We do not want to be among those, Jesus, who declare our faith in you, and then it's unrecognizable as anything different than how the rest of the culture lives. You are this amazing, non-anxious presence in this world and for us. Would you form us into people who routinely think like you do, who routinely live in a chaotic world with an unexplainable to others, unexplainable sense of calm and compassion and kindness and truth and firmness and confidence and gentleness. Jesus, would it remind them of you? And may we be like you, and it would be for your fame now. Amen.